Can I assume all of you have this sheet with you? So just can you just keep that in front of you so that anything we discuss with respect to this, you have a quick access to it. So good to see all of you, right? Aspiring to be civil servants, and as I said, decided to have or taken the plunge to prepare. Right. So I think since morning you had the first session, which was about first part, which was about the general preparation, and then Sir talked about history. So I'll basically be talking about geography, one, and second is your ecology and environment. That's what we crisply or shortly call this topic as, right? So first of all, we'll discuss what is the importance of geography and ecology environment, one, in the world around us, and more importantly in the exam, right? So if I ask, let's say if we just try to ponder over it, what you'll find is that geography basically lays, right, or sets the platform for any kind of development, which could be human development, or before that you can say ecological development or the evolution of life, or if you see other planets, it's the conditions, isn't it? So geography, if you see, it will have the first part of your NCERT book that you have, right? I'm assuming all of us have the class 11th NCERT, which is Principles of Physical Geography, right? So if we start from the very first chapter of that book, it starts with the solar system, right? And broadly, not only solar system, it goes a bit beyond and backward and starts with the universe, right? So the Big Bang, the formation of the universe, the formation of the galaxies, stars, and then the solar system, right? So that is what your first chapter talks. And that means even this part of the formation of the universe and the things that we have in the universe are part of your geography, right? What you otherwise call as, क्या बोलते हैं, astronomy, right? So it somewhat fits into your geography thing. And what does that help us to understand? It helps us to understand how our planet, or first of all our solar system came up, right? And in that our planet came up, right? And what are the other planets and how our planet is different from other planets, one. And second, if at all we have to look for our kind of planets, right, where should we look for it, right? So to define regions around star where you find our kind of planets or habitable planets, we have, or the community, the astronomical community has come up with a term called as a Goldilocks zone, right? There was a question 2 years back, if you would recall, about Goldilocks zones in the prelims exam. So what is a Goldilocks zone? It is a zone around a star in which there is a possibility of finding a planet which is habitable. Do we get this? So let's say if we are looking for life beyond our planet, or if we are looking for habitations beyond our planet in case we have to move out, right? So we would be looking around those Goldilocks zones, right? So as to figure out, I hope we get this. Now beyond this, let's come to our planet, right? Because we understand there are planets unlike our planet and planets like our planets, and then there are lot many more things, isn't it? Like we have the Mangalyaan mission, if you would recall, right? There was a question this year itself, if you see the Mars orbiter mission, right? So we send orbiter missions, we send rover missions, we send flyby missions, different types of missions we send in the space to know the planets, right? But let's come down to, so that part, which is your astronomy, and then we come to our planet Earth and how the planet Earth evolved. right? So if you better understand how, if you are able to read about how the planet Earth evolved, you will come to know what kind of position we have, one, vis-a-vis the universe, and second, we'll come to know what are the differentiating factors on our planet, and what are the factors which have led to evolution of life, one, and within that, the evolution of human beings. Right? Now, when I say evolution of human beings, what all does this evolution of human beings involve? One, the evolution of the hominids. Right? We had the hominid community. Hominids are homo, that word basically means human. But then in that series, you have different types of humans. Homo sapien is one type of human species. Right? You have others also, like Homo habilis, Homo erectus. You might have come across these words. At least suna, matlab, I understand that we might have forgotten, right? But we have heard, isn't it? So one is the conditions which have led to evolution of this human beings, one, biologically, and then evolution of Homo sapiens per se, in terms of, now how have human beings evolved, if I ask you, where, I think abhi aapka history ka session, you had a history session, right? So in that, maybe you might have talked about ancient history, right? If you go through your ancient history books, you will find it starts with prehistory, right? And in prehistory, you find the evolution of human beings through the stone ages, right? And in that you have different, within stone ages you have, if I ask you what are the division, or let's say if we just discuss, what you find is that within the stone age also, stone age was your, this is your mostly what you call as the prehistoric era, where you don't have a written history, right? So in the stone age, what we find is that this also is divided into what all? Macrolithic, Mesolithic and Microlithic. There are three divisions, right? This is on the basis of what? The other part of the word, lithic. Lithic means rocks, right? So macrolithic means larger rocks, tools made up out of larger rocks. Mesolithic means tools made up of medium rocks or medium sized tools, which were an evolution or an improvement over the grosser tools, right? So the gross tool would be something like a rock to be used as a hammer, right? But a finer tool or a Mesolithic tool was a finer tool to do something which is finer. And then you come to Microlithic. Microlithic means making of blades, right? Making of sharper knives. But to understand this, you need an understanding of the rock types, right? An understanding of rock types require you to understand what the rocks are made up of, one, and how they are organized in their structure. So once you understand this finer division, that okay, this rock can be used for making a micro tool or a finer tool, and this rock can only be used for a grosser tool. This was evolution, right? Because at that time, those were the tools which we used for our improvement. So if you have a micro tool, you could actually chip off a part of anything, right? And that was some kind of an evolution. After that, we come to the metallic ages. History, I'm just trying to take you through the historical flow. So after the rock ages, we had the metal ages. Which were the first metals? Copper, right? So you have the copper age, then you have the bronze age, and then you have the iron age, right? Now copper, like for example, once you will be reading about the Mohenjo-daro or the Harappa period, you will realize that that was a copper age, right? Till then iron was not in use, and at that time the copper which the Mohenjo-daro people were using used to come from mines in Rajasthan, the Khetri mine, right, which is still a mine. I don't know how many of you are aware of this, right? So at that time also, after the stones, they came to understanding of the metals, they identified metals, they found where you mine it. So basically, if I ask you, what defines or what decides where what type of rock you will find, where what type of metals you will find, what decides all this? The geographical processes which go on to form them and put them at those locations. Yes? And these geographical processes go on to determine that people living in that area would have access to what kind of conditions and what kind of resources, right? And those people will go on to take it out and use it for their evolution, one, improvement, and secondly, if they are able to further utilize it, they will also use those resources for exchange, barter, isn't it? And that's where what will start? Economy, right? So it lays the foundation for technological development, it lays the foundation for social evolution, it lays the foundation for economy, right? And gradually, once the economies grow, you have much better built or human settlements which evolve into civilizations. So that's where it lays the foundation for civilizations, right? And if you will see, most of these civilizations basically come along, mostly if you see most of the ancient civilization which you will be reading in your world history would be around rivers, water bodies, right? Now what determines which river will flow where? It's again the geography, right? Where will the rivers or the perennial rivers or the rivers which do not dry up come from? So those rivers will be coming from snow covered mountains, right? What determines that snow will fall in those mountains? The climate, right? And ultimately it is the geography again. So geography determines where it has made conditions conducive for evolution of civilizations, and where the conditions are not conducive for civilization or settled or settlements. For example, if you will read about a city called Machu Picchu, where do we have it? Right. So Machu Picchu was a city created on the top of a mountain, right? Because of the unsustainability of the town, the city deteriorated and over a period could not be sustained, right? For example, similarly, if you will read about, I think recently there was this article in the newspaper, I won't say it is there in your NCRTs, which talks about the Harappan civilization being 8,000 year old, older than what we have been understanding till now. Have you read it? And the reasons they gave for the deterioration of the Harappan civilization was decrease in rainfall, right? Over a period, the rainfall decrease led to more frequent droughts. The people tried to adjust, they were smart enough, but then there's a limit to which you can adjust, right? And the civilization deteriorated and over. So it was geography which made the conditions around the Indus river for the civilization to come up, and it was geography which made the conditions deteriorative so that the civilization comes to an end, right? So geography is a very strong force, right, in determining what we'll do, where we live, how people will move, right, create new continents. The whole era of exploration was based around figuring out newer islands or newer continents and evolution there. So you have the North America, South America, Australia, all these new lands, isn't it? That again was geography, and it gave the conditions in terms of resources. If you see the present evolution of China, why the Chinese economy is growing so fast? What do you find? It is the geography in terms of, one, the area, second, in terms of resources, many of which China has of its own, right? And third, the population base. The population base which has evolved over the years so as to give it the required workforce, right? And on now it is capitalizing on all of them and has gone to a decently good extent, right? So I'm assuming that to some extent we understand the importance of geography here, the importance of ecology and environment. Ecology and environment creates the surrounding right? And the living component within that surrounding, of which we as human beings are part, right? And for our sustainability, what else is required to be ensured that it is also sustainable, right? So we need to ensure that the environment around us, the atmosphere around us, the climate around us, the water bodies around us, the vegetation cover around us, all of this, the biodiversity around us, the wildlife around us, all of that becomes sustainable, because this is all part of a chain, right? And if any part of that net or chain breaks, the whole system might over a period collapse, right? So that is your ecology and environment. Now, having said this, very briefly about the importance of these topics. What is the importance of these topics in the exam? Right? Why civil services has put it? The civil services has simply put it so that as an administrator, if you better understand the surrounding around you, right, the world, the primary factors, the natural factors, if you understand those natural factors better, you would be in a position to make better policy decisions, right? And you will be in a position to better implement them, because you need to know the world around you to administer it. You want to be administrators, but right? You will be administering geographies, regions, district. सबसे पहला administered region, right? At least from this perspective, it's not the smallest. You have smaller ones. So you have talukas, you have, I won't get into those, right? All I'm saying is that this is a geography. Then it becomes a bigger region. Then it becomes a state, where you might become a secretary or whatever. And then it's the national level, right? So ultimately it is geography only. Take away the geography and what will you be administering? Kuch bachega, right? So you need to know the different regions better. And you need to know that to ensure the sustainability, what is the role of your environment and ecology, so that the whole system, and that's exactly why UPSC has put it in the syllabus, and they are asking you questions just to understand that we better have a grip on this. The problem here is that after your 10th, most of you have not read geography, one. Secondly, newspaper generally is not full of news of geography. So you will find political news, you will find economic news, you will find social aspects, but they generally do not talk that this plate has moved this much, right? Or this is the pressure condition in the atmosphere and why it is building up, right? So we generally don't get much news, we are not in connection with it, and over a period we tend to forget it, right? And that is a big challenge which I find with most of the people who are preparing for civil services. Geography becomes one area where they find it to be a bit technical and a bit, right? So how do we solve this? The idea is to solve this puzzle. So how do we solve it? That's where I would like you to see your schedule, right? The approach paper, the how to approach geography sheet that we have given. In that sheet, what you will find is how to approach sheet. After, I think, the first page or somewhere around the second page, you will find a list of books. You find, right? So the list of books include, there are what you have to start with, right, to understand basically geography. Now I'm coming to the approach to geography. How do you approach it exactly in terms of your preparation till now? So first is your class 11th and 12th NCERTs. NCERT, right? 11th and 12th NCERT. There are 4 books in these classes. First one is Principles of Physical Geography. Second is India Physical Environment and whatever, right? So the World Physical Geography, or the Principles of Physical Geography, and the India Physical. What is the physical structure of India, right? And then the physical components of India. The second is your Principles of Human Geography. In Principles of Human Geography, you will come across things like agriculture, industry, right? Transportation, population, and that would be in the global perspective. So how agriculture is organized globally, how industries are organized globally, all that part, right? So this part we call as human geography, right? And then you have the India human part. So within India, how these things are organized. So total 4 NCERTs, right? And So this is one thing that I would like you to pick up, the 4 NCERT books, 4 NCERT. Then you have to look into these, or while you will be reading, there will be lot many locations which will come, right? They will say, okay, Andes, Rockies, Himalayas, Alps, Sargasso Sea, right? Arctic Ocean, isn't it? Mediterranean Ocean, Black Sea. Are we able to recall all this? No. अभी तो हमें पता नहीं है. The other thing you do is Google. Better is you have your own atlas. Buy one atlas and go on writing and marking on your atlas, so that by the time you have done your preparation, your atlas also has lot of facts. Right? So once you will open that page, you will at least be able to recall, अच्छा इस page पे this was the news, or this was the thing which I had to. So your atlas in itself becomes a book made by you, showing the locations also, isn't it? So just before your PT, if you're doing your, turning the pages, you will be able to know. Like for example, this year's question paper, if I talk of, there was a question which talked of 4 geographical regions, and so it said Bagelkhand, I hope you would remember. So Bundelkhand, Bagelkhand, Malwa Plateau, Nashik, right? These regions were asked and you have to mark them. I'm just giving you one question for that matter, right? You had similar questions in the world part as well. So you have to know, ye hai kahan? Isn't it? For example, the second or third question, ASEAN, right? Or SAARC region. So you need to know the difference between SAARC or Southeast Asian or ASEAN. So what part is your ASEAN region? What part is your SAARC region? How are these two regions different from each other? Right? Because both of them are, these are groups, but these groups are geographical groups. Right? Geographical, it covers some geographies. So you need to know which countries it is talking of, right? What is these islands, right? If you will see the ASEAN region, let me give you one question they asked in the mains. I think last year they asked this question, how the Philippines and Indonesian region is made up of hundreds of islands, right? Now if you see geography wise, you will find that the group is a political group or whatever economic group, but the region, you need to get into and understand, okay, what is the geography of this region, isn't it? So that way, having a map and going through the map will help you understand, know, bilkul exactly. Another question 3 years back was, which is the, I think the question they asked, which are the countries around the Mediterranean, or which strait joins the Mediterranean with the Black Sea, something like this, or which country lies on that border, right? तो ऐसा ही question पूछा हुआ था. You have to know कि Turkey कहाँ पे है. You have to know that which is the strait in that zone, right? For that you have to, कहाँ से पता चलेगा? All these facts are not given in books. These are map facts. Right? And only if you have some interest, you would be able to know. Right? You have to know, does Israel touch Mediterranean? Or does Jordan touch? Or what is West Bank for that matter? I'm talking of your IR part. Right? So you will have West Bank in news. You will have Gaza Strip in news. You have to know कहाँ पे है? ये किसका West Bank बोल रहे हैं? West Bank basically means the West Bank of the Jordan River. So you have to know where is the Jordan River flowing. Isn't it? Then only you will, so this basically, all this lays your, right, background. So basically adding a map also becomes important, and here I would suggest you any school atlas, either Oxford, or you can take anyone, right? If you are not okay with the Oxford thing, buy anyone, right? One more additional source which you have to refer in your conventional part is your G.C. Leong book. G.C. Leong. Right? This is Certificate Physical and Human Geography. Certificate Physical and Human Geography. G.C. Leong, generally referred in the ICSE board. Right? And UPSC somehow has a liking for this book. So it goes on asking lines from the book directly as questions. Right? It has asked in the past, and hence we generally suggest that you read it. This book basically has two parts. Within one book, two parts. One is the physical part and the second is your regions, right, where it talks of the climatic regions of the world. The benefit of reading, generally students have a tendency of dropping the climatic regions part. They do not read. The benefit of reading that part is that in your main syllabus, mains, right, you have in your paper 1, if you see the last part of your main syllabus, it says the natural resource distribution 1 and factors affecting location of primary, secondary and tertiary sectors. ये दो चीजें दी हुई हैं, resources, resource distribution and factors. Every part of that second part of the book, right, which has around 6-7 chapters, you will find the climatic regions, the vegetation of the region, the agricultural practices of the region, some of the resources of the region, what kind of transportation has evolved in those zones, right, and what kind of occupation people generally engage in, right. So that basically lays the foundation also for your primary, secondary and tertiary sectors, right. So GC Leong also becomes an important book which will help you not only in your PT but also in your mains, right. So these are the set of books that you conventionally need to read, right. But the data given in some of these books have become over a period older. So where do I get the new set of data from? You get it from either the India yearbook, right, in which you have sections for population, agriculture, industry, transportation, economic development, सबके sections हैं. There are chapters, more than 30 chapters in that book, right, and those chapters give you data related to all of this. So one, India yearbook, and second is your economic survey, which gives you not only data but even the newer programs with respect to all these sectors of your human geography, specifically India part, right. This is mostly India oriented, right. So this is your data source, right, in terms of the updated data, and this is your conventional book, right. If you are able to do this much along with your focus thing, about which I am assuming since morning lot many people have already talked to you about. So what ensures that your focus is right? One is your syllabus, the second is your, more importantly, the questions asked by UPSC in the last 5 years. Okay? If you specifically see 13, 14, 15, these 3 years, the pattern has broadly changed, right? So to know the new pattern, I would suggest see these 3 years questions, more focused. PT pattern remains somewhat same for the last 5-6 years, so you can see 6, 7, 8 years question on PT, right? So see the syllabus, see the question asked, and then read your source. So you know what, okay, so what will happen is that while you will be reading your books, it will click in your mind that maybe they have asked a question on this, right? So you will focus around that, and by getting a sense of the book, you will get to know what more could be asked in times to come. So while you will be reading, you have to create questions in your head. Do not just go on reading books. Let me tell you, that's a futile exercise. If just reading a book is almost a futile exercise, right? Until unless you are able to make out that what question can be asked around this and what will be the answer, right? For example, if you're reading about formations of cyclones or formation of monsoon, so you have to see, okay, what can they ask me about monsoon? Once you have read that, then you have to think, what can they ask me? So can they ask me about the summer monsoon? Can they ask me about the winter monsoon? Can they ask me the conditions, right? Can they ask me how the rainfall occurs, right? Because by reading you will come to know, and then you have to create those right questions and then create an answer to it. That if they ask this for a 5 marker or 10 marker, कितने marks का पूछेंगे? So the mains question will give you a hint. What kind of statements can they give, right? If you so that also you will get a hint from the paper. The ones who have seen this year's paper, there was a question on tributaries of Brahmaputra, right? 3 tributaries they gave. The whole part is a copy paste from the NCERT along with the tributaries. Do you remember? Lohit diya hua hai na? So the names come from, you know, the chapter also, right? So from there they have picked and copied, right? So this kind of copying and asking questions is still happening in your geography part. Last to last year they asked a question about duars and the tea region. That part is given in your physical geography India part, not in your human geography, physical geography. India part, they have mentioned the conditions in duars and why duars have to some extent gained the tea producing region kind of a role, right? So those questions, steel plant question that they asked in mains last year, I think last to last year, right? So which are the major steel producing areas and what kind of trend is changing? That is box given in your NCERT. एक छोटा सा box है around 200 words का, that has almost the whole answer, right? So all I'm trying to establish here is the fact that UPSC is still asking questions from your NCERT. If you are thorough with your NCERT with the kind of questions in advance, that okay, what is the question they can ask and what will I be writing, and these would be my points. That's it, आपका preparation is done, right? Just ensuring that your PT and mains kind of a thing is, you are able to differentiate that they will be asking in PT these kind of questions and they will be asking in mains these kind of questions. Is that okay? Right. So that is for your geography thing. Now the ones who will be coming for the classes, for them also I would just spare 2 minutes here. If you see that schedule, I have given a class-wise schedule with topics which are important. Now those topics are again some kind of a breakup of your syllabus based on what all UPSC has asked till now, right? Because if you see your syllabus, it's a very, the prelim syllabus is one-liner. Geographical aspects, economic, physical, economic, social, right, of India and the world. PT का syllabus इतना ही है. क्या समझ में आ रहा है इसे एक word से? ज़्यादा नहीं. Mains का syllabus भी देखोगे 3 लाइन लिख दिया है. Geophysical phenomena, resources, all this, right? So do we get a clear sense of what all? No. So if you see the syllabus part, the 25 classes breakup gives you for which topic we'll be covering. So those topics are nothing but a explanation of your syllabus or expansion of your syllabus, right? And for every topic I have also given a list of chapters of either the NCERT or the GC Leong that you need to read, right? So pick up that topic, pick up those chapters and read to some extent, get a broad sense, and then walk in the class, and you will be in a better position to grasp what is happening in the class. That's where we can move around with the question types. Okay? I hope we get this. The ones who are preparing or who have decided to prepare on their own, for them also this will be useful in getting a sense of these are the topics, these are the chapters. So if you are able to thoroughly revise it over a period, that will take care of your geography part. Do we get this? Right. Now, as I said, what all does your geography syllabus include? Kya kya hai? Part, and how it will be organized would be somewhat like this. That one, you will have the physical geography part, right? It will start with your land, right? So land related aspect, first you will try to understand the land. Then you will understand inland, you will try to understand the different types of formations that you have. So how the mountains are found, how plateaus are formed, how plains are formed, right? And the smaller formations, all this. After that you have the atmosphere, right? So in atmosphere, you will try to understand the atmosphere and the climatic conditions, right? So what are the different type of factors which influence a climate or make up climate? And then what are the different types of climate and what are phenomena like cyclone or monsoon, right? All this. So that is your atmosphere. Then oceans, right? So what all happens in the ocean is the next part, right? Or what all is formed, or how the oceans are formed and what kind of phenomena we have in the ocean which affect the world, right? So this is your physical part. After that you have the human geography part, in which starting with your population, right? So how populations come up and what is the distribution, in some cases areas in which they are settled and how they are settled or settlements, right? And then you will have the activities like agriculture, right? So agriculture and mining I am putting together because this is your primary activity, right? and then you will have the manufacturing, which will be the factories, etc. So this is your secondary activity, secondary human economic activity, and then services like transport, right? Transport and all this, right? So these will be your tertiary activities, tertiary, right? And so this is your organization of your geography thing. That's okay. And the same set you will find with respect to India also. So in India, what is the physical formation? What is the atmosphere like? Not much about the Indian Ocean, right? And from there you move to the population, settlement, how is the agriculture organized, how is the manufacturing, resources, sab kuch aa jayega. Ultimately you will come to the last part, and then end after your transport and all, you have in your NCERT the chapter on disaster management, right? So that disaster management chapter helps you understand what kind of hazards can happen and how we are managing it. Disaster management is also a separate part in your syllabus of your mains, right, where it says disaster management and the related aspects, right? So for disaster management, you have to refer to what is happening in the domain of disaster management, which would be like NDMA. We have a body like National Disaster Management Authority, and that was formed on the basis of National Disaster Management Act 2005. And the ones who are following news would recall May 2016 we had the National Disaster Management Plan also, which was released, right? So disaster management, to some extent you have to upgrade, because only those chapters of NCERT would not be sufficient for the question that they ask in mains. The ones who have seen the mains question would agree. Okay, so this is your geography part, and then your ecology environment. Now ecology environment otherwise seems to be a pretty unorganized kind of discrete topics. So what I'll try here is, one, I'll give you the sources which we would expect you to read, and second, just a broad organization so that you have some idea of where things fit in ecology and environment. So first of all, the sources are in your NCERT again, NCERT class 12th biology book, right? You have chapters on environment, ecology and environment. There are 4 chapters. Chapter number 13, 14, 15 and 16, right? So starting from chapter 13 to chapter number chapter number 13 till chapter number 16, right? So these 4 chapters you will find to be broken into, first part is your ecology, right? Then the ecosystems, then the biodiversity and the international clause and all this. So that gives you a hint of what ecology environment is. The one who are not comfortable with reading only that book can read any 9th or class 10th level NCERTs also. Right, so in that also you have environment related section. I remember older NCERTs, our environment was a NCERT, right? Older walas, class 10th ka NCERT hai wo. That is right. So in class 10th older series, there is our environment named NCERT on environment, which is good to understand in simple terms what your ecology environment is. The ones who understand it relatively better can come to your directly to your biology, these sections, right? But this itself would not suffice. The kind of questions they are asking are relatively, a bit complicated and complex, and I should say broader than what this part teaches you. So you have to suffice it with one more source. Now the Vision IAS material which we have come up with, I think last 2 months back we have revised the whole environment thing, right? And that's a very well source, a very decently well come up source, right, which is updated with much of the things and well organized. So you can refer to Vision IAS material for ecology environment, right? It's a handout with 10 sections, right? So either you refer to this, or If you want a book only, there are n number of books in the market. You have the Shankar IAS environment book available, right? Then you have PD Sharma's environment book available. You have Majid Hussein's book on environment available. I would recommend, if you have to go in the book sequence, follow the order that I have said, right? अगर book ही उठानी है तो शंकर IAS लीजिए, उसके बाद नहीं हो तो then go to PD Sharma, and if not then go to Majid Hussain. If not, Iraq Barocha, some of you might be knowing, right? So Iraq Barocha's book is also there, and then n number of more books, right? The story doesn't end, right? So these are the books. In addition to this, one more thing that I would suggest you to read would be, specifically for your India part, is your Ministry of Environment report 2016, downloadable from the website of the ministry itself, right? So MOEF environment report is there on the ministry's website. It will be a good source to know various parts and what all initiatives the government is taking with respect to environment and ecology, right? So that again is a good source. Uske beyond, I would only suggest you the current affairs material of any one or two places. I wouldn't name that for you. You know, current affairs तो हमें पता ही है, ठीक है? So बहुत सारा material is available, but stick to any one or two material sources. Do not go on switching. That doesn't help, right? I was seeing last में sir ने the history sir showed you that Bruce Lee statement, huh? So that I completely agree with that statement as far as UPSC is concerned, right? You have to revise if you want to take those questions right. This is a challenge. Many people this year also found the paper they felt was pretty much current oriented and was straightforward, and you knew the answers, but the difference between the answers given was so close, right, that many questions became wrong just because people were not clear of the options. Right, so you feel like that this is current, but you are not sure which of the options given is right. How will you be more sure? By revising. Is that okay? So revise any one or two sources. So current affairs, material, right? This is it. This is the material part of your ecology environment. If you are done with this much, good enough. I have not given you, let's say, a Ministry of Environment. So you have this wildlife, schedules. Right, Wildlife Act जो है हमारा Wildlife Protection Act, in that you have schedules, Schedule 1 to Schedule 5, and you find all the scheduled animals. Schedule 1 are the most protected ones, and right in the end there are, right, I won't recommend that you memorize the whole list, but you can see it, right, and you will come to know of it through these sources. So first you have to be thorough with this. Once you are done with this, that's when, if you find time, right, depending on how comfortable you are in remembering names of animals and birds and how much interest you have, right, based on that you can pick up. For I think yesterday there was this news about the Great Indian Hornbill. नहीं, वो question पूछा हुआ था, Great Indian Hornbill, and there was a UPSC question. Now how many of us know what is a hornbill and where we find it, and how much interest we have in knowing it? Depends on your personal interest, but I would say, how many times do you see, like I think yesterday Great Indian Bustard के ऊपर एक article आया हुआ था, हाँ? Did you read it? How many of us, right, did we note down where we find it, what are the region? So those kind of notes again become important. They have asked questions. Last year they asked a question that the Indian scientist community has found a banana, huh? Which has orange pulp. Now that was in news in October last year. Hindu के अंदर article था, right? N number of questions were asked directly from the articles of Hindu newspaper. How many of us go on noting it, right? Even if you find it in your current affairs, how much emphasis do you give to it, right? That's why I'm saying that the sources would remain this. Now whether you will go deeper into these will depend on your interest, right? So first I'm just marking the primary source. Additional sources will follow up for the people who are interested. So they will pick up the IUCN list, they will pick up the Ramsar list, they will pick up the Schedule 1 animals, and they would to some extent try to memorize it, right? But वो बात का काम है. First of all, you have to know what are the main things that I need to hit, right? So this is your ecology environment. Now the next thing what I'll do here is to help you organize ecology environment into the various parts of ecology environment. We'll try to organize it. So and what all words are there in your syllabus? Ecology environment में क्या क्या word है syllabus में? PT का syllabus में there are 3 words, right? Which is the first one is environmental ecology, environmental ecology, then biodiversity, and then climate change. Okay, these are the 3 things which are mentioned in your PT syllabus, and then they have said which does not require knowledge of a very specialized level, right? So they want you to know, वो आपको, you know, they are just trying to fool you because the questions that they ask, even if you have a specialized knowledge, you find it difficult to answer them, right? People who have done their graduation around those subjects, even they come up and say, sir, ये कहाँ से उठा के ले आते हैं? We do these many lists, we have done everything, but still they figure they are always able to come up with surprise, right? So one is this. Now the second part is your main syllabus. The main syllabus doesn't use any of these terms. The main syllabus starts with environmental pollution, right? Environmental impact assessment, right? So these are the topics they have given. They are not using these words again because ये तो हो गया ऊपर PT में. Okay, and the kind of questions that they ask around environment are generally India oriented questions. If you will see, generally they ask you, right? Now, so we will just try to organize all these words into how they are related, right? So first of all, the whole story starts from living beings, right? And for living beings, what is the building block for living being in terms of, okay, we are not getting into them. We are coming in terms of, if I organize the living beings, so the building block is an individual, right? Individuals of living beings, then you will have population, then you will have community in which you will have multiple population, and then you will have them interacting with the surrounding, right? So it starts with your individual, right? Individual goes up to your community. Now till this, it's only the living component, and then the interaction of this with the surrounding, right? The interaction of the living with the non-living gives you, what does it give us? Biodiversity, ecosystem, क्या देता है? It becomes your ecosystem. So your ecosystem is the interaction of the living with the non-living, and that ecosystem is basically of different types, right? So you have ecosystems on land and you have ecosystems on water bodies, right? Now water bodies will be divided into, right? So this surrounding and community interaction gives us ecosystem, and which would be of types like land based and water based, and the water based will be divided into oceans and fresh water, right? And fresh water will be further divided into rivers, lakes, all this, yes or no? And oceans will be divided into your deep oceans and your coastal regions, like your mangroves, right? Your coral reef region, all this, okay? Now land based will be divided into forests, right? What is a forest? A forest is a region where the plants and the animals interact with the surrounding and create a region, which is an ecosystem, isn't it? So forest in itself is an ecosystem, and then you have other like your grasslands, isn't it? And then you have deserts, right? And that's where the vegetation level is going down, as you see. Sabse pehla forest, then you have grassland, then you have the desert, and then the colder regions like your tundra and all, right? So these are your land-based ecosystems. If you go further in this cycle, you will come up to biosphere. Biosphere, right? Biosphere is The region where the land, the ocean, the water and the atmosphere interacts with the living component, right, which is nothing but the earth. So earth has its own biospheric region, the whole of the earth becomes a biosphere. Yes or no? Right? So I hope we understand what is ecosystem, we understand what is biosphere broadly. What is ecology then? Ecology is the scientific study of this living, non-living interaction. It is the scientific study. That's what your ecology means. Right? So what does environmental ecology mean in that, and what is environment? एक और वर्ड था ना, लिखा था environment. Ecology हमें समझ में आया. Ecology is the scientific study. When you try to study this interaction, we call that as ecology. What is environment? The surrounding, right? Which might include the atmosphere, which might include your soils, all this, right? So that's your environment. So environmental ecology means understanding the environmental component of the ecology. Okay, because we also say ecology, that word could be used with respect to many other sources. You have technological ecology, or you have social ecology, where the social surrounding, right, or the technological aspects mean, which is nothing to do with your environmental ecology. So environmental ecology means around ecology, ecology, that term with respect to the living and the non-living component. Do we get this? Okay. उसके सिवाय क्या था अगला word? After that you come, so once you know the surrounding and all, from there you come to, or once you know the biosphere, right, in this biosphere what all is interacting? In the biosphere you have the living part, right, and this living part basically you can divide into plants and animals. Yes, right. Now this plant thing you can divide it further into domesticated plants. Domesticated plants. What are domesticated plants? Domesticated plants are what component of our surrounding? Do you know that we domesticate plants also? हाँ, domestication of animals सुना होगा. Plants कैसा domesticate कहते हैं? Agriculture. Right? All the cropping is nothing but domestication of plants. You identify which plants you like and then you grow them at your will in the region that you want to, right, and ensure their growth only to the level that you intend to, and after that you clear it. So that is nothing but domestication of plants. And you have domestication of animals, you know, right, for your farms and all, right. So within this we go into, and these plants and animals and all together create the biodiversity. Biodiversity means what level of diversity exists in our system, we come to know from this. So that is the biodiversity component. And beyond the biodiversity we go into, उसके बाद क्या है? Your protection. So how do you protect your environment? And that's where we'll get into what are the measures being taken to ensure that our environment etc. is well protected, or the biodiversity is protected. So you have clause on biodiversity protection, you have various global steps being taken to protect the climate, which is nothing but the surrounding, biodiversity, all this. So this is how your ecology and environment is broadly organized, right? Starting from the ecosystem up to the biosphere, the biodiversity in it, the living component. So what measures are we taking to protect the let's say plants? क्या कर रहे हैं? You protect the plant from the forest, so deforestation, right? So you have afforestation measures, right? What measures are we taking to protect the animals? You have various IUCN list, right? Or your what we call as Wildlife Protection Act, right? So these are the steps being taken, right? So one side we are protecting the animal, the other side we are protecting the vegetation and all. So the protection measures. And then climate, how do you protect? What are the measures? You know, Paris meet recently, UNFCCC suna hoga, or the recent Paris meet at least, which we had in December, right? So those are the measures we are taking to protect the climate, right? So this is how the whole thing could be organized and broadly, right? So with this, I think the ecology part also we understand to some extent. And how do we prepare for ecology, we understand. So basically the idea was about geography and ecology. We have already discussed that. I think polity sir is already there. So now you will have your polity sessions, right? So enjoy. Thank you. If you have any questions to ask me about geography and environment ecology, I'm available in the Vision IS office, generally in the first half of the day, right? Probably except for Wednesdays. So you can come and meet me personally. You can just ask that I need to meet Harsh sir for geography, and they will guide you to my room, and you can come and ask me anything, irrespective of whatever you do. And for your optional thing also, you can come and ask me, right? So that's it. Thank you.